Hello everyone. In Coding for Beginners using Python, we're working on the activities on pages 20 to 27. The intention of this video is to give you some tips for success. If you feel like you're ready to tackle the activities without assistance, please carry on. Okay, so you can see here in the background that I have launched Python and that the idle shell is running. First thing we want to do is to create a new file. So click on File, New File, and let's name this file. Click on File again and Save As. Now notice where you're saving because we do not want to save in the Python program. So let's go to a directory that we'll be able to retrieve our file from later, and I'm going to put it in Python Programs, and I'm going to name my file Dragon Snacks. Now it's worth noting here that you're going to end up with 3 Python files as a result of completing these activities. Each of these files is going to build on the other one. The file that you'll turn in is the last iteration of your game. So we're going to do Dragon Snacks, and then Dragon Snacks Returns, and then finally Dragon Snacks Loopy, or Loopy Dragon Snacks. And that loopy file, the one that includes a loop, is the one that you will turn in. If you are smart enough to skip the first 2 activities and complete the game and have everything right in it without doing those first 2 activities, more power to you. But most of us are going to need to go through the 2 iterations of the game and then go to the 3rd one to understand what's going on. So that's my advice. All right, so we're ready to start putting down some code, laying down some code. So the first 2 lines of code are simple print functions. So let's go ahead and do that. So the print command should be pretty familiar to you at this point. So you are telling the computer what output you want to appear on the screen to the player of your game. So you want the computer to say, you are in a dark room in a mysterious castle. In front of you are 3 doors. You must choose one. All right, so our 3rd line of code is going to define a variable. So at the end of your 2nd line of code, press Enter, and in line 3, we're going to define the variable player choice. In other words, we're going to say, what does player choice mean? Player choice is going to be an input. And what do we want to be input? We want our player to choose 1, 2, or 3. So player choice is the variable. That variable will be defined by the player input. Okay, so at the end of this line, again, press Enter. In your next line of code, you are going to create a condition. And you remember that conditions tell the computer what to do if certain conditions are met. So we're going to use an if statement. So let's look at what we're saying with this if statement. We're saying if the player choice is equal to, the double equals is equal to 1, then this is what we want to happen. We want a printout that says, you'll find a room full of treasure, you're rich. Game over, you win. Okay? Well, what if the player selects 2 or selects 3? We're going to need some additional statements to control those conditions. So we need a new line. And in this next line of code, we're going to use an if-else statement. So we're saying to the computer, if 2 is chosen instead of 1, this is what you should do. So if else, the player choice is 2, do this. Now, I want you to notice something here. Notice the indents. So after the first if statement, the next 2 lines of code have to be indented. That tells your program that these are the things that should happen if these conditions are met. So if the condition of 1 being selected is met. Same thing for the if-else condition. We want to make sure that the next 2 lines that go with that if-else condition are indented. Okay, so new line. And make sure that you are flush to your margin for this new line. If our player selects 3, then these are the things that we want to happen. So you'll notice they selected 2, the angry ogre came out and hit the player with a club, and the game was over and the player lost. If they selected 3, they went into the room and found a sleeping dragon. But then the dragon eats them, and the game is still over. And again, I took some license with the text in here. You can do that too. Just make sure your syntax is correct. Okay, so then finally we ask ourselves, well, what will happen if the player doesn't cooperate at all and refuses to select 1, 2, or 3? What if they select a random number like 99? Well, what do we want to have happen if that is the case? So with the else condition, we are telling the computer if any other number is selected, anything other than 1, 2, or 3, then here's what we want to have happen. We're going to have the computer output read, sorry, you didn't enter 1, 2, or 3. And then we'll be nice about it and say, run the game again if you dare. And again, I took some license with the language. So that is our complete game program for the first activity. Remember that this isn't the one you turn in. You're going to go on to do the next activity, which adds another layer, and then the final activity, which is includes the loop. Okay, but let's save this and test it to make sure that it's good code. So we're going to do File and Save. All right, how do we test it? We go to Run, and we run the module. All right, looks good so far. I'm in a dark room, in a mysterious castle, and in front of you are 3 doors. You must choose one. I'm going to choose 1. Okay, I found the room full of treasure, and I'm rich. The game is over, but I have won. Now you can go ahead and run each of the different options for your game. You can test out 2 and test out 3, but I will tell you that if you didn't get a syntax error, that 2 and 3 are going to work equally as well. All right, now let's talk about what happens if you get a syntax error, because that could happen to you. It's happened to me. Okay, so let's go in here and make an error. All right, let's go to this line of code and let's remove the parentheses. And I'm going to save this, and I'm going to run it again. So a syntax error is very disappointing. However, the good news is that IDLE is going to give us a little bit of help with this. So wherever your code stopped is going to be marked with red, kind of like a stop sign, right? And so your code couldn't go any further than this. So if you look at the line preceding and examine it carefully, then you can see that that parens at the end is missing. And so we're going to click on OK for the syntax error. We're going to put the back end of these parentheses back in, and we're going to save this, and we're going to run it again. And this time it starts perfectly. So we're just where we need to be. Okay, so that's how you debug, and IDLE gives you a little help with that. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call or shoot me an email.